Welcome back to the main toys of, the show in which we go over the action figure history of various Transformers characters. And this time around, we're going to be talking about someone who's very near and dear to my heart. The Kid Appeal character that was around for my childhood. Hotshot. I need to give a big thank you to Blood890 as well as Bird Tendo. You guys essentially have given me an excuse to talk about someone I've been dying to look at since I even started this show. Though the name's been around for a lot longer than many fans would think, most people would associate Hotshot with the Unicron trilogy version of him. And for good reason. There was half a decade where he was effectively the second face of the franchise after Optimus. He was the Kid Appeal character. He was essentially a combination of Bumblebee and Hot Rod, the leader in waiting, and yet also more than happy to be the best friend to the kids. But that's where we start to see the beauty of Hotshot as a character. Now, there's a lot of people who would point to some of his more obnoxious moments, especially in the early episodes of Armada. But if you actually sit down and watch the show, you can see the arc they put Hotshot on. He starts off as a very arrogant, brash character, someone who is more than happy to dive into the deep end, without realizing that if you're not able to swim, you're gonna drown out there. There were many points in which the other Autobots had to save him. There were many points in which Scavenger or Jetfire or even Optimus himself would have to chew Hotshot out. But then you also got to see why he's this way. His best friend Wheeljack turned into a Decepticon because Hotshot didn't save him. Hotshot's indecisiveness cost him his best friend. And there's also the fact that if you listen to what the Autobots talk about, you become aware that Hotshot and Sideswipe are the only two that don't remember what a peaceful Cybertron looked like. Everyone else remembers a Cybertron that wasn't at war. Hotshot and Sideswipe can't. They were born during the war. All they've known is conflict. And when all you know is conflict, and you have to live with the guilt of thinking your best friend died because you froze up, of course you become angry. Of course you feel like you have to prove that you deserve to be there. And as time went on, Hotshot grew. He developed. He became the main holder of the Star Saber. He was able to receive training under Scavenger. He earned the respect of his comrades like Blur, Smokescreen. Even Scavenger had to admit that Hotshot had his good points after a bit. So much so that when Optimus died, Hotshot became the next leader of the Autobots, chosen by the Matrix itself. Now when Optimus came back, Hotshot was more than happy to return to being a soldier, and yet Armada ends with Hotshot being the leader of Cybertron alongside Jetfire. Now with everything I just said, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Hotshot came from Armada. However, the name first popped up in Robots in Disguise 2001 as the leader of the Spy Changers. This Hotshot had pyrokinesis, the ability to shoot fire, and his design is actually based off of G1 Stepper, later known as Ricochet. The first toy to ever bear the name Hotshot was a redeco of the G2 Blowout mold. This was just one of the many Spy Changers with a little bit of translucent plastic in his thighs and a very fun-looking car mode. This Hotshot in Japanese markets would have actually been sold in the Spy Changer DX 6-piece set later on that year, in which all 6 Spy Changers were included. A version of Hotshot in red and green translucent plastic would have been exclusive to Jesco stores in Japan. Going into 2001, Hotshot would be released in United States markets alongside his fellow Spy Changer, Rev. In 2002, all 6 of the original Spy Changers were going to be redone entirely in translucent plastic, though they would keep their normal deco hits. Hotshot, of course, received one of these new figures. That said, the biggest thing to happen to Hotshot this year is, well, the release of Armada. The original Armada Hotshot toy has some issues, but overall is a really fun toy. His car mode is nice and slick. It looks like a proper sports car. Jolt, his minicom partner, is able to attach the back to give him a flight mode. Once he transforms, he's able to use his Axle Zuka. He can flip down his visor, and even though he has very limited articulation in his torso, he has very well articulated legs. Also, the design overall is just incredible. I've always been a fan of the Armada design work, but Hotshot in particular, it reminds me of the X-Wing pilots in Star Wars. When you look at the torso, that's what I see a lot of. And given Hotshot's general nature, it makes sense that you would pull a little bit of Luke Skywalker into this guy. In the same year, you'd be able to get Hotshot alongside the Air Defense Micron team in Takara Tomy markets. I don't know why, I just really like the Happy Meal of Hotshot from McDonald's. For any fans of Legends of Cybertron, there would have been the Super Collection figure Hotshot. You could have either gotten the normal anime colors or the pewter version. If you wanted a non-transforming articulated version of Hotshot, there was the Mega Super Collection figure. Kabaya made a model kit of Hotshot, again it came with Jolt. There would have been a Hot Wheels style car of Hotshot released only in Japanese markets. If you're able to stomach some bad licensed board games, the Transformers Armada Battle for Cybertron game included a PVC figure of Hotshot that actually looks pretty sick. To bring a titanic year to a close, you could have gotten a Hotshot backpack. Going into 2003, we would enter the Unicron battles, in which we got the Power Links Hotshot. And I'm sure you've noticed, he looks a lot like G1 Hot Rod. And to be fair, Hotshot is so closely aligned with G1 Hot Rod, to the point that in Japan his name literally is Hot Rod, it only makes sense that they would go full hog with the deco. Of course, not everything was cheery in 2003. There was the Built to Rule Hotshot, and he looks rough. This is just kind of odd. Apparently in 2003, Toys R Us had an exclusive candy line called Bubble Twist, so you would get a gumdrop, but inside the container there would also be a little toy from either G.I. Joe or Transformers Armada. Hotshot was one of them, and it came in 5 different colors. Popping back over to Robots in Disguise, you'd be able to get the original Hotshot once again, but this time with a tiny tin. If you were in Japan, you could have also gone to the Super Spy Changer Lottery, effectively Lucky Draw, and you can see Hotshot here has a completely different deco, but it's still gorgeous. Going into 2004, you'd get Transformers Energon, and I hate to say it, Transformers Energon reeks of middle child syndrome. I mean, you're caught in between the beautiful, beautiful toys of Armada and the incredibly playable figures of Cybertron, and even though your toys are great, they're not as good as either in a lot of ways. As for the show, I mean, good God, Armada is one of my favorite Transformers shows ever. Cybertron is incredibly fun, has a lot of good fight scenes, great voice acting. Energon is just a drag. Even still, the Energon toy line had a lot of hits. Hotshot, unfortunately, isn't one of them. Wave 1 Hotshot has a lot of things going for him. A great car mode, a fun transformation, and in robot mode, I at least like his silhouette. However, his articulation isn't the best. His shoulders are in a very weird spot. His head is attached to a giant stalk. His legs are very, very limited. The gun looks okay, and there is no jolt here, so we've lost the fun of the Minicon gimmick. Even still, if you take Hotshot and combine him with his wavemate Inferno, you see the real beauty of the Energon Autobots. The fact that the more you get, the more combinations you get to try out. As a lower body, I don't think Hotshot's much to write home about. But as an upper body, with massive punching gloves, he's one of my favorite combined modes. The same year in Takara Tomy markets, you'd be able to get Hotshot and Inferno together in a box set. And of course, because every toy line is going to give us 2 versions of Hotshot, we also got the Energon Hotshot version 2. I actually really like the colors here. Going into 2005, it was time for the Unicron trilogy to come to a close. But man, did it leave off on an excellent note. Just look at Hotshot. The car mode is just incredible. One of the best car modes in any Transformer ever. Plus, you have the Cyber Planet key that's able to flip out fins, making him look a little bit more like G1 Hot Rod. It's not the most impressive gimmick in Cybertron, but it is nice and gives you some visual variety. When she transforms, you actually see a lot of red and yellow that was hidden in the car mode. A great change, again. Even better, he's pretty posable for the day. Not as posable as figures now, but for the early run of Cybertron, incredible. I love the head sculpt. I love the design in general. The silhouette is so pitch perfect for Hotshot. They remembered that he's supposed to look like a quarterback. Give him the big shoulders, make it clear that this kid, he's going places. The gun's still kind of iffy, but that's not a big deal when the toy is so excellent. And of course, Cybertron had to flex a little bit. Armada and Energon both just repainted Hotshot halfway through the show. In Cybertron, he got an entirely new mold, the Cybertron Defense Hotshot. Now, you can look at this and say, that's not Hotshot, where's the sports mode? But I actually really like the fact that they moved away from a sports car and gave him a more armored APC look. If you were a big fan of the original Hotshot design from Cybertron and wanted it just a little bit smaller, you could also get the Legends of Cybertron Hotshot. This is where we get a little bit interesting. You see, in Takara Tomy markets, there was the Excellion Red version. Now you might look at that and say, hey, I know Excellion. He was actually pretty available towards the end of Cybertron. The thing is, that Cybertron Excellion is a different toy. He has a lot more gray. This original Takara Tomy Excellion is one of the rarest Transformers toys ever made. Limited to 500 pieces. Going from the height of luxury down to the value packs at Walmart, there were Cybertron value packs released in 2005. It was Hotshot, Dirt Boss, Override, Red Alert, Sideways, or Snarl. They would randomly be packaged together. Worlds would collide in 2006, as we would get Cybertron Hotshot alongside the Robots in Disguise Mirage. There is also the Tard exclusive Drag Race pack. This was Hotshot alongside Override. With how much the two interacted in the show, this is a great pairing for a box set. Alongside that, if you were a big fan of Excellion, you'd be able to get him in the Legend scale, and yeah, he still looks pretty solid. To bring 2006 to a close, you'd be able to get Cybertron Hotshot in the Tactics line. In 2007, the Legends Hotshot would be re-released in the Classics line. In 2009, in the Universe 2008 line, you'd be able to get Hotshot. This was the first new attempt at Armada Hotshot made since the original Armada line, and in some ways I think he's even better than that original. The blue on the car stands out a lot more, making the entire vehicle mode just look a little bit better. Once he transforms, the colors are perfect. I do like the proportions as well, even though he had just a bit of kibble issues. He had a hard time with his shoulders. Jolt is trying. He has very thin legs and is known to fall over a lot. And that is without getting into the fact that Hotshot has an insanely finicky transformation. It is so hard to get this guy to transform, and there have been many issues with him breaking in that transformation. In some ways, this could have been the best Hotshot ever. And instead, it's just another compromised version of this incredible design. In 2010, Takara Tomy would release a new Hotshot in their Henkei line, though it's basically the same as the universe, aside from the fact that it includes missile launchers. We're going to take a pit stop in 2011, even though no Hotshot came out this year. It's because animated Hotshot would have been released this year had it not been cancelled. One of the best looking toys in all of animated, never released. But to tell the story of animated Hotshot, we kind of have to tell the story of animated as a whole. You see, when Derek J. Wyatt was first making the designs for animated, there were going to be 5 Autobots. Optimus, Prowl, Bulkhead. Well, so far, so familiar. The final 2 were going to be Red Alert and Hotshot. Now, Bulkhead was going to be very different in this version. He was going to be an old war veteran who was more than a little bit cranky, similar to what we later got with animated Ratchet. Red Alert was going to be a female character, and she was going to be cold, distant, near emotionless, similar to Armada Red Alert. And as for Hotshot, well, he's everything Hotshot's been. He was going to be reckless, he was going to be more than a little bit annoying, and yet he was going to have a big spark. He was going to be brave. He was going to have leadership potential. He was going to be everything that Hotshot has been up until this point. But wouldn't you know it, a certain movie got out of development hell around this time, and Hasbro ordered complete synergy between animated and the movie. That means that Hotshot was very quickly turned into Bumblebee. More than a few people have commented on the fact that animated Bumblebee acts nothing like any other version of him, and that's because it's not Bumblebee. It was supposed to be Hotshot. But this was the beginning of the end for Hotshot. Someone who had become the second face of the franchise after Optimus. Well, Bumblebee was back. The G1 fans were back. The G1ers were loud again. And Hotshot, he didn't have a spot at the table anymore. There was a Hotshot to come out in 2012, Prime Hotshot. He's a remold of the Robots in Disguise Bumblebee. And I'll say this now, I think he wears the mold better. I'm not saying that because of my fanboying. I'm saying it because I think the blue and the orange look incredible. I love his goggles. I love the general proportions here. Of course, the transformation and the automorph are amazing. That's all in service of the Bumblebee version of this toy. But I do think that overall, this is the superior version. But in 2014, Hotshot was finally going to be in the movies, baby. He had finally arrived in Hollywood, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize this had become the many toys it tracks. Yeah, Age of Extinction Hotshot is heavily inspired by G1 tracks, using the Crosshairs mold. Hotshot fell off hard. There used to be a point in which he was the second name on the marquee after Optimus. He had multiple big releases every single year. But then towards the end, it started to trickle. Maybe one toy every year, every couple years, and then just a couple of repaints. And then nothing for several years. There was no third-party love. There was no big appearance of Hotshot in fiction. IDW didn't touch him. Our boy was dormant. Until he came back for Rescue Bots Academy. In 2018, Hotshot became one of the main characters for the Rescue Bots sequel series, and I think this was a perfect use for Hotshot. Just like how Cheetor was used to great effect in Cyberverse to act as a mentor to Bumblebee, I think focusing in on the more kid-friendly aspects of Hotshot and making him the face of the younger bracket of Transformers was a brilliant move. It gave him relevance again. And he existed outside of Bumblebee's shadow once more. He was the main character alongside Whirl. The two of them often shared leadership, and Hotshot in particular was noted as being the main student of Heatwave, the leader of the original team of Rescue Bots. I also love his car mode here. Making him into an off-road vehicle, basically a dune buggy, is a good pick for Hotshot. I know that we always focused in on his speed, but if we want to think of him more as a thrill seeker or a daredevil, him going all-terrain is actually pretty brilliant. The first Rescue Bots Hotshot was a very simple figure. You just fold down his arms and he's the robot. Fold them back in, he is the four-wheel drive rescue truck. There was a propeller plane of Hotshot that I think just looks incredible. Going into 2019, there is going to be even more love for the Rescue Bots Hotshot, starting with the one that turned into a boat. Hotshot was mighty, just letting it all hang out. Now, I like this guy. He doesn't transform, very basic articulation, but he looks just like he does in the cartoon. He's a good, chunky little guy. There was the Flip Racer of Hotshot that gave you a tinier version of the design, and also his little head could pop up. That same Flip Changer was actually released with a giant Bumblebee tower. And to cap it all off, there was the Academy Rescue Team. This gave you Hotshot, Whirl, Wedge, and Hoist. Rescue Bots was a godsend for Hotshot. It finally gave him spotlight again, made an entire new generation of fans for him, and it also brought him back to the forefront of the fandom. And I think Hasbro knew that, considering Generation Select's Hotshot, a remold of the Siege Deluxe Hound. This guy is just incredible. He's supposed to be an homage to the Cybertron Defense Hotshot, and even though I don't think he's great at that, as just a new version of Hotshot, I think it's really fun. You can see how you can approximate the turret in the vehicle mode, And in the robot mode, you have a Tommy gun, you got a pistol, you got so many little accessories to switch around between, and the figure itself is just awesome. One of the best deluxe transformations they did in Siege. Going into 2020, Rescue-Bot's Hotshot would get an F1 race car vehicle mode. There was the 14-inch tall Rescue Power Hotshot. This guy turns into a massive fire truck with a big overslung shoulder cannon. And finally, to bring the Rescue-Bot's Hotshot toy career to a close, there was the 11-inch tall, show-accurate, easy-to-do conversion Hotshot. In 2023, it was finally time for the original Hotshot to come back in Legacy Evolution. Hotshot here has issues, specifically his legs. His knees are somewhat stiff, and you also have the kibble that impairs any type of mobility. And yet otherwise I say he's perfect. The car mode is great, exactly what I'd want. He transforms like a dream. He has the Axel Zuka, and yet also has fully articulated shoulders and arms. I even like the fact that he has his little pistol again. The visor works. He looks like $1,000,000. Even though there are issues here, it can't stop the fact that I love him. If you were a big fan of Powerlink's Hotshot, you'd be able to get him alongside Jolt at PulseCon 2023. Now, I don't want to nitpick. This guy was more expensive than if you got a Voyager and a Deluxe at mass retail. And the reason for that, at least according to Hasbro, is because of Jolt, the guns, and the blast effects. But you look at those guns and you might say, I don't remember Hotshot having those guns. It's because he had them in one episode. Dash. I just hate that this guy wasn't more available, especially because this is the only way to get that new version of Jolt. But thankfully in 2024, happy days had come again, because we got a new version of the Cybertron Hotshot. I really do enjoy this guy. I think he has some issues again, specifically his arms are just a little bit weedy, and I don't think he's as good as the original, but he's still really solid. He's wonderful looking, far more screen accurate, far more articulated. Really, my preference for the original is much more based on my nostalgia than anything else. And I think that this was a wonderful way to bring this toy history to a close. One of the most unique and beloved designs of Hotshot, given a brand new toy that was very well liked within the fandom. And hopefully, we're going to be seeing a lot more Hotshots very soon. And that's it. I gotta admit, I wish that Hotshot had a better go of it. I know that this is very much my nostalgia talk, and I know I'm not any better than the G1ers that fill every little message board, but I wish that he showed up more. I wish that he got to stick as the Kid Appeal character. I think the thing that sticks in my craw the most, right? Everything that made Hotshot special and unique was stolen by Bumblebee. Hotshot was a yellow sports car? Well, now Bumblebee is the yellow sports car. Hotshot was brash and arrogant? Well, now Bumblebee is brash and arrogant. Hotshot was the leader to be? Well, now Bumblebee is the leader to be. I don't want to start any type of Bumblebee hate, but it's uncanny. It feels like as soon as Bumblebee swiped that spot and animated away from Hotshot, he just kind of absorbed everything that made Hotshot his own person. Bumblebee, in a lot of ways nowadays, is just a more vanilla Rodimus. Whereas Hotshot at least had a lot of points separate from Rodimus. He was a lot more straightforward. He was a lot more confident. He was a lot more reckless. He didn't have the same world-weary nature of Rodimus. So those two were able to coexist in Energon with no issue. And yet, you try to put Bumblebee and Rodimus in a room together nowadays, it doesn't work. IDW tried it. They had to get 2 separate comic books. Cyberverse tried it. Eventually, we just stuck with Rodimus. Bumblebee, in so many ways, has become such a catch-all of a character, and yet he's not like Optimus. Optimus always has a position that doesn't necessarily impair any other character you put him with. But when you choose to use Bumblebee, you are actively blocking characters like Cheetor or Hotshot or even Rodimus to get as much attention as they might deserve or need or would like to have. I wonder what the world would have looked like in terms of Transformers had Hotshot and Red Alert been animated. I think that Potentially, we would have gone to a cool, chill place within our fandom a lot quicker. I don't know if you remember this, but around the time of Animated, there was still a lot of resistance to there being more than just boys in our boys' club of Transformers, to put it lightly. Maybe Red Alert being around would have helped that. It would have been the first time since, well, Beast Wars, for there to have been a major female character in a Transformers show. And in keeping with that, maybe had Hotshot been an Animated, we wouldn't have been absolutely drowned out by the ocean of bumblebees. I'm not a bumblebee hater, but I'll be honest with you, I do get kind of tired of all the bumblebees, and that's because the entire time I've been a fan, there's been nothing but wave after wave after wave after wave after wave after wave that each has to include a bumblebee. Maybe if Hotshot was there too, at least then it was a different character. At least then he has designs he could draw from that aren't yellow. I don't know. I'm not saying that the world would have been better had Hotshot and Red Alert been an Animated. What I'm saying is just, I wish they had more love. I wish they had more attention. I think Hotshot as a character has gone on a arc that resonates more with me than any version of Bumblebee. I think Hotshot speaks to me more than any version of Bumblebee. I feel a lot more protective of Hotshot than I feel of any version of Bumblebee. I feel pride for Hotshot. I would root for the Hotshot team, and yet I wouldn't be bothered to even boo the Bumblebee team. Bumblebee is just there, you know? I like him, but he doesn't elicit any type of strong response from me. But Hotshot, he's my guy. He's the one that I root for. And I hope that someday he's going to be the character in the cartoon or the comic book that I really, really, really like. But until that happens, I'm just going to have to keep holding this torch for him. Maybe one day you'll get your spot in the sun, Hotshot, but until then, we'll always have Armada. But guys, I'll ask you, which was your favorite Hotshot? And is there a version of Hotshot you're trying to track down right now? Now, we got a lot of people on the list, but we're going to get to each and every one of them very, very soon. Plus, we got a couple of new shows to try out. I don't know how often Toys That Broke the Mold will get new episodes. It definitely won't be a weekly thing like this is, but I would like to go back to that again, very soon. And there's also a new show I'd like to try out, one that's going to focus more on specific toy designers. I'm actually already doing the research to do a video about Shogo Hisui specifically. But until that happens, we're just going to keep up the pace, entering the new year, and hopefully we're going to be able to see over 50 new The Many Toys Of by this time next year. I can't wait, guys. It's been one hell of a ride already. I'm hoping that we're going to keep up the pace, and I'm really happy that we were able to enter this new year talking about someone who means a whole lot to me. But in terms of what we get up to next, I'm not too sure. I guess we're just going to have to figure that out next time.